I can't read, Mr. Hill. Can you read for me? The child's voice, small but resolute, rang out into the bustling schoolhouse, slicing through the gentle roar of moving chairs, laughter, and shuffling feet. Heads turned, conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even the clock seemed to tick slower. I looked up, a crumpled note now offered in her trembling hand. In that moment, a hush descended, the kind felt just before a thunderstorm, or the instant before a life is changed forever. Her eyes darted between hope and fear, and as I carefully took the note and began to unfold it, the world seemed to freeze around us. What was written inside would change not just her life, but mine as well. Stay with me. What happens next may spark something inside you. If you love real stories of courage, subscribe, comment your city, and share. If you know a story like this, your voice inspires others. The schoolhouse and its people. The sunlight was warm, painting jagged stripes over desks worn by generations of restless children. Outside, autumn leaves tumbled across the playground, and the air was thick with the sense of chalk dust, old wood, and sweat from a lively morning of lessons. The schoolhouse itself sat at the heart of a small American town, weathered by the years, its walls echoing with the dreams and disappointments of hundreds who had passed through. On that day, the ordinary rhythm reading, arithmetic, whispers of secret games, was interrupted by the extraordinary quiet that followed the girl's question. At first, her voice was nearly lost in the noise, but as she bravely repeated her request, more heads turned, and for a moment, all eyes settled on her. She was small, the youngest of 4 children. Her shoes bore evidence of every sibling who had come before her, laces mismatched, soles patched by loving but desperate hands. Her hair, pulled back in wisps, framed a face both innocent and battle-worn from daily challenges. Teachers felt a blend of sympathy and admiration swell inside them. Mrs. Benson, the principal, exchanged glances with her colleagues, sensing the importance of the moment and the courage it must have taken for this child to speak up at all. Parents who waited to collect their children for lunch instinctively drew closer, some remembering their own silent struggles with learning in youth. Miss Lillian, the art teacher, touched her necklace, a charm given to her by her mother, a reminder of the barriers she herself had overcome as an immigrant child. The janitor, Mr. Floyd, who often faded into the background, stepped into the hallway, hands in his pockets, curiosity overtaking his daily routine. The child's request, "Can you read for me?" was not just an appeal for help with a task, but a window into a deeper longing for understanding, for connection, for the dignity that comes with knowledge. Part 2. The note and the first wave of reactions. I took the crumpled note, feeling its slight weight pressing into my palm, as if it carried all of her hopes. People crowded closer, their faces etched with anticipation, some whispering kind encouragement, others silent, afraid of shattering the fragile moment. My hands unfolded the paper, a process that felt both ceremonial and sacred. The note's surface bore uneven pencil marks, erasures, even a faint smudge of chocolate from an earlier snack. It read, "Sir, I cannot read, but I know I can learn if someone will only give me a chance." The room breathed together. Miss Lillian let out a gasp, tears pricking the corners of her eyes, recalling the first time she admitted she needed help reading English. Mrs. Benson looked at the girl's older sister, who hovered in the doorway, desperate for courage but paralyzed by guilt for not being able to teach little more at home. I knelt to the child's level, my own heart pounding, and began to ask about her dreams. "What do you want to read one day?" I whispered, voice just for her. "I want to read fairy tales to my brother at bedtime, and letters my father sends from his job," she said. Her world, filled with whispered stories and unspoken messages, was waiting to be unlocked. I could see in her eyes 1,000 other children, each one hoping for the key. Mr. Floyd, wiping his hands on his faded overalls, added quietly, "When I was a boy, I used to stare at words and think they were secrets for people smarter than me. Only when someone read to me did I start to believe I could learn too." Part 3. The Ripple Effect. Something shifted in the schoolhouse. A sense of community, previously hidden beneath discipline and routine, began to awaken. Students exchanged glances, some recalling times they'd hesitated to ask for help, and others feeling empowered to step forward now that someone had broken the silence. I wrote a new note for the girl, large and clear. "You are capable. You can learn. I believe in you." She traced the letters with her finger, pronouncing each aloud as best she could. Mrs. Benson announced that there would be a reading circle every day after lunch, open to anyone: students, staff, parents, even siblings. The art room transformed nightly into a hub of storytelling, where children crafted their own books, illustrated adventures, and shared tales from their families. Word spread, and soon parents began arriving before the last bell with armfuls of storybooks. A mother shared her favorite cookbooks. A father brought a collection of railroad timetables. Another offered his old baseball cards, all eager for their children to experience the joy they'd felt when someone finally taught them to read. The Help Me Read Club expanded into a community event. Saturday mornings, the playground became an open-air library. Local businesses donated supplies. A church group offered a reading reward program, each new skill celebrated with homemade cookies. Part 4. Struggles, Setbacks, and Solidarity. With this newfound spark came challenges as well as joys. The girl's progress didn't always come easily. Some days her letters became tangled, and frustration led to tears. She would leave the group more than once, sitting under the oak outside, chin trembling, clutching her note from me like a lifeline. On one such gray afternoon, I joined her on the cold steps. The wind rattled dry leaves about our feet, and in those humble shadows I shared a story, not of triumph, but of my own failure. "When I was a boy," I began, "I once ran away from my schoolhouse, certain I'd never learn. My teacher found me by the river, and instead of scolding, she handed me a pebble and said, 'Carry this as proof one small thing can grow into mountains if you don't give up.' I failed so many times before I succeeded. We all do." My story worked a gentle magic that didn't instantly dry her tears, but convinced her to return to the classroom, pebble in hand. That pebble, a daily reminder, became her talisman, her classmates soon gifting her their own lucky stones, marbles, painted beads, building a collection of hope. Across the weeks, the group of helpers and hopefuls expanded. Miss Lillian devised games for every stubborn letter and sound. The principal, Mrs. Benson, convinced the school board to fund a larger library. Mr. Floyd, who had once hidden his own embarrassment about illiteracy, began reading aloud the lunch menu every morning, then teaching new words to anyone willing. The classroom walls turned into a gallery of handwritten thank you cards, doodles of open books, and inspirational phrases gathered from students' languages and backgrounds, a tapestry of perseverance. Even parents who struggled themselves joined reading night, humbly admitting, "Maybe I'll learn along with the children." With every week, pride replaced shame and silence was banished. Outsiders visiting the school marveled at the change in spirit. Where once children hid mistakes, now they waved their scribbles with pride, proof that progress, not perfection, is what matters. Part 5. Growth, Ripple Effects, and Parallel Stories. The story didn't remain within those wooden walls. As the girl gained confidence, she found her voice in other areas. She joined the local church choir, introducing hymns she could now finally read. At home, she became her brother's dearest storyteller, reading to him each night and helping him with his own lessons. Meanwhile, the ripple effect of her courage reached peers outside the classroom. At the bakery, the owner started leaving short, simple poems with each loaf of bread. At the train station, laborers took turns reading news headlines out loud, discussing the world together. One elderly farmer, hearing of the reading group, finally revealed he'd spent his entire life without learning more than to write his name. He signed up for lessons, becoming the oldest new reader in town. Each success story encouraged another. A young boy learned to write a letter to his father overseas. A store clerk overcame his fear of forms. Finally, confident to apply for a better job, a young mother began volunteering at the school, reading to children, and inspiring a new generation of caregivers. As seasons changed and the first snow fell, the reading group gathered to share a holiday story night. Children read passages aloud, parents listened, candles flickered, and laughter and applause filled every corner. The girl who once couldn't read now helped two classmates with pronunciation, correcting gently, celebrating progress at every syllable. Reporters arrived, writing articles about the little town with a big heart, interviews with families now united over bedtime stories and personal triumphs. Invitations to speak poured in. I shared the story at meetings, in church basements, and, eventually, in city halls of neighboring counties. As I watched each new milestone, I reflected on my own journey with renewed humility. My work had taken me into mansions and offices of the world's most successful, but I realized that true greatness might be measured not by money or titles, but by our collective lifting of one another, especially the quietest, most easily overlooked among us. I recalled beloved mentors who planted hope in me. My mother, who read poetry aloud on stormy nights, saying, "Words are shelter, Napoleon." A friend who once gave me his only book, with no promise of its return. A teacher who refused to give up, even when I failed the same lesson for the third, fourth, fifth time. Their kindnesses echoed in every act of belief that spread from that single schoolhouse. I saw how each pebble, each tiny effort, built a mountain of possibility. By spring, the town had become a beacon for others. Busloads of children from nearby villages visited the school, bringing their own notes, their own fears and hopes. The library's shelves were filled not just with books, but with letters of thanks from all over the state. The little girl's story inspired new programs, adult literacy nights, creative writing clubs, even a traveling bookmobile. For many, it was the first step toward realizing old dreams. Starting a business, voting in an election, reading to a grandchild, writing a first poem. Her Help Me Read Club now had branches in 5 counties. The original note was framed, hung at the entrance with a plaque declaring, "Let no child ask for help and find only silence." The annual reading festival, her idea, welcomed everyone, regardless of skill. People shared favorite stories in every language represented in town, proving that learning is the inheritance of all humanity. Not long after the reading club's debut, I received letters from old friends, distant colleagues, even strangers who had read about our story in newspapers. Many offered their own memories, confessions of illiteracy carried for decades, the pride and pain of finally learning late in life, or sharing how one small act of belief led to family reunions, promotions, even marriages. I remembered my own journey in greater detail. As a young man, yearning for more than what my town could offer, I begged for scraps of learning from travelers and peddlers. In a cold boarding house, I learned to read business correspondence from a retired railroad worker. Later, as a journalist, I trailed behind successful men, Carnegie, Edison, Ford, learning that all of them, at one moment or another, had been lifted by a word of faith from another. Each flashback reminded me of nights studying by candlelight, tangling with self-doubt, haunted by critics who said I would never amount to anything. "The world is not changed all at once," Carnegie once told me, "but in the secret quarters of hopeful houses." Edison gave me a page scrawled with his own childhood mistakes, saying, "You don't erase the blunders, you wrap them in persistence." Every letter I received fueled my resolve to make the reading club not only last, but expand. We held history nights, where elders retold their first victories and failures, making them tangible for new generations. Yet not all was smooth. Some families, once excited, began to worry that extra reading hours took away from chores. A group of parents debated the value of fancy book learning against practical skills needed for daily life. A local merchant complained that children spent too much time dreaming instead of running errands for money. These moments tested our resolve. I held community meetings understanding, not condemning, the doubts and fears. With patience, I explained that reading was not just about letters, but freedom, the ability to choose, to understand contracts, to know one's rights. A breakthrough came during winter, when a fierce storm trapped many families in their homes. The club prepared story bundles, collections of books, notes, and simple instructions, and delivered them door to door. For many, it was their first time sitting together as a family and sharing new tales by lamplight. The local church hosted a read-a-thon for charity, and even the most skeptical adults found themselves cheering for their children. Laughter, tears, and surprise triumphs connected people in ways chores and errands never could. After the thaw, the club was stronger, its defenders louder, its members prouder. The little girl who inspired it all gave a speech to the whole town, promising she would never let anyone feel afraid to ask for help. The ripples widened. Sophia, a shy teenager, wrote her first poem and won a school contest. She spoke of her mother, who worked night shifts but always found time to listen to Sophia read, her presence as precious as any lesson. Old Tom, the farmer once too embarrassed to share his secret, began reading aloud at Sunday dinners, becoming the family's historian, preserving legends and local lore. Even Mr. Floyd, the janitor, went further, overcoming deeply rooted shame. He now gave motivational talks at regional schools. Every mop I pushed, I dreamed of pushing a pen instead. Now I do both, and I'm prouder than ever. Letters poured in from the next county, children asking to join the club, adults seeking advice, teachers requesting workshops. We sent reading ambassadors to distant towns to seed new clubs, and by spring, dozens more had bloomed. A group of high schoolers even wrote and performed a play about the club's journey, starring the little girl as herself, and the whole town came out for opening night. Cheers, tears, and heartfelt applause followed every scene. That night, I sat in the back row, hands folded, marveling at the effect of one brave question. As the club grew, we developed rituals to honor progress. Every new word mastered earned a star note, pinned to the classroom wall, a constellation growing each week. At monthly lamp nights, families brought their old oil lamps from attics and cellars, lighting the schoolhouse to symbolize the passing of knowledge. Children recited stories by firelight, elders recounted riddles, and even new readers shared triumphant tales. One child, previously silent and withdrawn, conquered his fear and read aloud for the first time. His trembling voice met with thunderous applause. Poetry was introduced, and workshops on letter writing followed. The club published its own journal, with stories, tips, and art from every member. Copies found their way to hospitals, halfway houses, and city libraries. Parents reported better grades, teachers spoke of increased confidence, and businesses hired club graduates as apprentices, knowing their problem-solving and teamwork skills now matched their reading prowess. No story is complete without showing the transformation of its central character. The little girl, now reading fluently, writing stories, tutoring others, became the youngest author in school history. Her first book was a fairy tale, dedicated to anyone who ever felt afraid to ask for help. You are braver than you know. Her brother, once recipient of bedtime stories, eventually became a peer coach for newer club members. Their family became local champions of learning, sharing tips at every community event. At graduation, the little girl gave a speech, her words strong, voice unwavering, telling the story from her first day with the note to the day she helped her best friend read a whole chapter out loud. The very club she inspired was now part of the town's identity, an emblem of stubborn hope and shared growth. Years passed, and as new children came to the schoolhouse, the story was never forgotten. The original note stayed framed at the door, teachers reciting its lines every term's beginning. Some club alumni went on to become teachers, librarians, even authors. The network of reading clubs expanded to cities and states, evolving with new technology, audiobooks, online lessons, video calls with distant mentors. The little town became a case study in education conferences, proof that change is possible, even inevitable, when faith and collective action meet. Even as the world modernized, the essential lesson endured. Progress is best rooted in belonging, kindness, and belief. One child at a time, worlds are remade. What started as a trembling request, "Can you read for me?" became a legacy stretching across generations, continents, and hearts. I ask you, wherever you live, whatever your story, who will you lift up today? Who might lift you? If this story moved you, subscribe to join a movement that honors every act of hope. Comment your city, add your own story, and thank those who believed in you. Let us stand together, one small question at a time, building not just readers, but dreamers, healers, and champions. The words you share now may be the ones a future hero needs most. Let's continue this tale, write it together, spread its promise. Let every stranger become a friend, every silence become an invitation, every story a chance for greatness.